Hello, I hope this video helps. Tonight we're going to look at warm-up to array123 and the Java implementation. So whether you're a student of mine or someone out there just learning to program, please don't hesitate to join us and send along any questions. Alright, the question states, given an array of ints, return true if the sequence of numbers 1, 2, 3 appears in the array somewhere. And we can look at these and kind of make sure we understand. In this one we return true because we can see that 1, 2, 3. The second example returns false because there's no sequence 1, 2, 3. And the third example returns true because we can see that sequence here at the very end. So when I'm working with students and I'm talking about this problem, there's two big ideas that I kind of really highlight. The first one is placing the return statement. So often students struggle about where to place a return statement and they run into a problem. If they're in a situation where you can return as soon as you find something, you know you're going to want a return statement inside your loop somewhere. In this problem, you're going to have to return statement after the loop. So you're going to return false because if you make it through the loop, that means you haven't found 1, 2, 3. But inside the loop, there's going to be a return true somewhere. The second big idea is this thing called reading frames. And I talk about reading frames with my students as this idea of how many elements are you looking at in a time. So in this case, I'm looking at 3 elements at a time. And you can see it right here. So if we have nums, and there's my list or array, and I see that I have indexes 0 to 4, the first 3 elements I have to look at are those 3. So when I'm at I is 0, I'm going to look at 0, 1, 2. And then when I is 1, I'm going to have to look at 1, 2, 3. And when I is 2, I'm going to look at 2, 3, 4. Now what this shows me is if I continue, I don't want I to reach 3 because if I reaches 3, I get this index out of bounds error here because my reading frame is 3 elements and I'm trying to access an element outside the length. So what this tells me is I need my loop to go I is 0, 1, 2 and stop. So let's start by writing a loop for that. So for int I equals 0, I is less than, well, we're going to say I is less than 3 and I is equal to I plus 1. So now I'm going to do a simple if statement, and I'm just going to say if nums at 0 is equivalent to 1, and nums at, pardon me, that should be nums at I, because I'm using this counter I as an indexer, I plus 1 is equivalent to 2, and nums at I plus 2 is equivalent to 3, well, we're going to return true. And I'm going to hit go now, and you see it works sometimes, but it also fails in a number of cases. And in some cases, it gets this array index out of bounds. So what we have to do now is we have to generalize this. Because we wrote these loops, the loop values, the count, check, change, with reference to a length of 5. So in some cases, if our array is smaller than 5, we get this index out of bounds. And in other cases, if it's larger than 5, we don't inspect those values. So the question is, how can I relate 3 to the length of 5? Well, that's going to be nums.length minus 2. And I hit go, and there it is. Now, students often ask me, okay, what can I memorize? How can I figure this out? And I can't stress enough the idea of being able to trace out this example and understand what values to use is really helpful. Because, in this case, the general rule would be, let me just do this. There we go. In this case, the general rule is, it's always nums.length minus the length of reading frame minus 1. But I could equally change this, and sometimes I find students who find it easier to do it this way. They say I is less than or equal to nums.length minus 3, which is the length of my reading frame. So in this other case, the general rule wouldn't be what I say there. And I go, and that works as well. So choose what you want. I tend to do it this way because I like to use the less than sign. That's the same way Python will always use. It will always use that less than sign or greater than sign. But again, being able to think it through and trace it out is really important. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.